Hi everybody, today I'm working on a 2005 Mini Cooper S. Today I'll be replacing the clutch slave cylinder. This car is having trouble getting into first gear, and that's a sign that the clutch slave cylinder is starting to go bad. Generally speaking, if you have a slipping clutch, that's due to a bad throwout bearing or a clutch plate or a pressure plate, and if you have a car that's hard to get into gear, it's usually due to a hydraulic issue. So here's what the slave cylinder looks like. On an R53 2002 to 2006 Cooper S, it's located in this general position near the bottom of the transmission housing. And these things are very hard to bleed due to the angle of the bleed valve. It's actually behind the input valve here. The only way to correctly bleed this is to pressurize it first. It needs to be fully pressurized, or there can be air up in this high part here which never makes it to the bleed valve. Or you could just turn the car up on its side, but that's a lot harder to do. So the way to properly bleed this is to fully compress the piston and leave it compressed until you're done bleeding. And I'll use a power bleeder to do this. You can also do it as a two-man job, where you have somebody press the clutch pedal gently while the bleed valve screw is loosened. It's not possible to bleed this while it's on the car, because if you press the pedal it'll actually push the piston out. So the only way to get this done properly is to make up a jig of some sort that fully compresses the piston. And this is what I came up with here, a strap of plumber's tape and some long bolts, although anything would work that allows you to equalize the pressure between the two sides. So before climbing under the car, basically I just want to get the longest bolts I can find and put them through here like this, and then press down straight. And while I'm pressing, I'll put these nuts onto the bottom here. And this is a job that's better done with your three hands. So if you got somebody to help, makes things go a lot easier. And put the screw on the other side, and then just compress them until there's no air left inside. And it's easier to do this while it's off the car. You can do the same thing on the car, of course. And you want to make sure you're pressing down straight. Don't let the piston go cockeyed by more than a little bit. A little bit's okay, of course. If you don't have plumber's tape, you can also use a block of wood, like with a small spot drilled in the middle, to kind of hold it centered. Alright, that's down all the way. A little bit more. Okay, that's down all the way. You just, finger tight's fine. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to crush the piston seal. And once I'm under the car, I'm going to slide this clip here forward. Then we'll pull the old line out. And when we do this, the hydraulic fluid's going to drip, so you want to do this fairly quickly. You'll pull the old line out, and there needs to be a rubber O-ring around the line. Sometimes when you pull it out, it'll stay behind inside the old slave cylinder. If that happens, you want to reach in there and dig it out and transfer it back onto the line. Then put the line into the new slave cylinder, press back on the clip, and that's all you need to do for the line itself. Then we'll put a power bleeder on the car and then loosen up this bleed valve and allow all the air to escape. So I'll jack the car up, and usually I jack up the front and the rear of the car and make things level. But when bleeding the slave cylinder, it helps to jack up just the front of the car to get just the right angle. If the front of the car is not higher than the back of the car, it's really easy to suck air back into the line as you're bleeding it. Alright, so the slave cylinder is using the same reservoir as the brake. So the brake is running off these two lines here. And the slave cylinder is just on this funny looking little plastic flexible line. So the first thing we want to do is pull the cap and then fill this up as much as we can. Beyond the max level, just fill it up all the way. As you can see, the position of the intake tube for the slave cylinder is much higher than the position for the brakes. So if you allow the level to drop past the minimum line here, you're going to be sucking air back in. Alright, it's pretty easy to get to the slave cylinder here. It's right under here. And then the only thing we need to remove is the skid plate to get access to it. So there's three 10mm bolts. and then a couple of half-turn Phillips head screws, and it'll come right out. And here's the slave cylinder right here, and this is the telltale sign that we've probably got a hydraulic issue. There's a hydraulic fluid on the outside of the cylinder, and it looks like it's been dripping. So it's held onto the bell housing by these two 10mm bolts. We'll go ahead and loosen these bolts up first, and then the last thing I'll do is I'll pull the line and switch it over to the new slave cylinder. Alright, now we want to kind of gently slide it out of the housing here without getting it cockeyed too much. And it pops right out. Now we'll throw a bucket under here. We're going to drip a little bit. I get the new slave tool ready to go. I'll pop the clip that I mentioned earlier. I'm just going to pull the clip off completely. There's no need to worry about it. We'll kind of wiggle to get the line to come out. Kind of pull and wiggle. Just be gentle not to bend anything. And I'm just going to inspect in here and make sure that the rubber seal is still on the line. It looks like it is. So now we'll just go ahead and slot it into place. It snaps right in. Alright, so now we have to bleed this thing because it's full of air right now. The reservoir is full, so I'll attach my power bleeder cap adapter, and I'll put a link in the description where you can get one of these power bleeders. They're really awesome one-man brake bleeding and clutch bleeding jobs for everybody. So once the line's been set up, we'll pressurize this thing to about 15 pounds. If you're doing a full system bleed, you can actually pour the brake fluid into the jar itself. There's a tube here that'll allow it to run up and into the reservoir. For a small job like this, I'll just leave the jar dry. Alright, so we're about 15 pounds almost. So we'll go back under the car. This is an 11mm bleed screw. It's made out of plastic, so be careful, especially when tightening. Don't overdo it. So I'll just loosen it up until I start to hear air and fluid coming out. There we go. And I'm gonna tap the reservoir as I'm doing this, just in case there's any bubbles hanging out. Yeah, it seems like it's knocking a few loose. And then we'll close it. And I think I'll repeat twice just to make sure that I've got all the bubbles out. So I'll loosen the cap and fill it back up again. And we'll loosen it up a second time. We'll tap to loosen up any bubbles that might be in there. And it looks like we got a couple more. That's good. And tighten it back up. Alright, I think that's good. We'll go ahead and put it on the car now. I won't be able to loosen those bolts until I take the pressure off. So I'll take that pressure off. And then we'll top off the fluid to the maximum line this time. Alright, now the system's not under pressure, so I should be able to loosen up these nuts pretty easily. It's not nearly as comfortable to work under here as it is on the workbench. Alright, now it's fully extended on its own. We'll just kind of press and wiggle it back into its resting place. Just like that. Put the bleed cap back on and put the fasteners back in place. So that's all there is to it for installation. Next we'll put the skid plate back on and then go test. So that's all there is to it. That's how you replace and bleed a clutch slave cylinder on a 2002 to 2006 Mini Cooper S. Alright, bonus footage time. I thought I'd show you guys what the inside of one of these looks like. So first I'll pull the boot off. Ooh, look at all that fluid that comes out. Take that off. There's just a plastic retaining clip here that holds the thing in. So it's real simple. It's just a container here with a spring, and then this piece goes up and down. This goes in here and it creates a seal. And there it is. I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely leaking. I can see that the seal is torn back a little bit here, allowing some of the fluid to escape through the tear in the seal. So that's our smoking gun. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.